morning, and apologies for the delay. Today, we're going to be talking about how we can help you craft and edit the perfect personal statement for the Common App essay or for a university-specific supplement. Application deadlines will be here before you know it, so we want to make sure that you have all the resources and tips available to you. First, we want to introduce ourselves and tell you a little bit about why you should listen to our advice, as well as a little bit about our company, and then we're going to jump into some example essays and structuring ideas. So my name is Nidhi, and I'm a counselor here in MoonPrep. I'm a recent graduate of Brown University, and I'm actually a BSMD student myself. I'm a member of Brown's Program in Liberal Medical Education, or PLEME. I have a background in both journalistic and scientific writing and have been in college counseling and essay editing for the past 4 years. I'm super passionate about helping students find creative ways to express themselves genuinely within their essays and the activities they pursue to craft the best possible overall story to use for college admissions to competitive universities.
And my name is Michaela. I'm also here, just a voice floating. And I previously worked as a staff writer for a national magazine, as well as admissions counselor at a Big Ten university. So I've been the person right in the seat reading hundreds of these essays. So I just, again, have the unique perspective from being on the other side of the screen. And now I have an author page on niche.com and spend my time working as an independent counselor at MoonPrep.
MoonPrep, our company, is made of a team of independent college counselors who work with students virtually and guide them through not only the college admissions process, but also high school. The counselors at MoonPrep serve as a guide and mentor to their students. We can help younger students select the right classes for their major, help them narrow down their career interest to choose a major, and finding a summer research opportunity or internship or even shadowing experience. We help students build the strongest possible applicant profile so that when senior year rolls around, they are a competitive candidate for even the most selective university. With our rising seniors, we help guide them through college applications so nothing is missed and help them brainstorm the perfect college essays based on the hundreds and hundreds of effective ones we've seen. Essentially, we work with each student in a one-on-one capacity. We don't follow a typical Monday through Friday 9 to 5 schedule. We work nights, weekends, and even across various time zones whenever it's convenient for our students. So we really fill in every gap that can arise from a busy high school counselor who might not have time to help on every one of these items for every student on their list. Also, we just haven't met many high school counselors who proofread students' essays on a Saturday night or hop on a Zoom call to help the students submit applications at 10 p.m. And that's where we come in. Our company is very unique because we accept a limited number of students for each counselor, so we can completely focus on our students' individual needs and even work with med school applicants and grad school applicants too. We have a focus on highly selective college admissions and direct medical programs, often referred to as BSMD or BAMD programs. Our counselors also meet regularly to share advice about our students, so when you work with one of us, you're really working with all of us.
And most students really, many students use the Common application, which serves as a single application that over 850 colleges use to allow you to fill out one application for every school that uses it. That means you're not submitting, 20 to 30 school-specific applications. You can put all of your information in one spot for the Common application. This application includes a 650-word essay called the personal statement. And that's what we're going to be focusing on tonight, because honestly, it's a big deal. Every college that you apply to using the Common App will see this essay. In order to kind of get into your dream school or the top schools on your college list, you'll need not only great grades and impressive test scores on the SAT and ACT, but of course also a strong personal statement. There are 7 prompts to choose from each year, but the last prompt allows you to essentially submit an essay on any topic. So definitely don't feel too hedged in by the prompt questions, because the last option allows you some free rein to submit anything you like. The prompts typically rarely change from year to year. In fact, this last year we saw the first change in one of the prompts, I think, in years. And admissions committees truly have no preference for which prompt you choose. There's no scenario that's like, oh, but they answered number 3 instead of number 4. So you truthfully write your essay and just choose the prompt that best fits kind of what you answer throughout your essay, but don't feel too limited by the prompts themselves. The essay allows schools to do a holistic review of your application because it allows them to see the full picture of who you are. This essay is the chance on your application, along with, of course, any other supplemental essays that the colleges require, to truly show your personality beyond just a resume. This is not the time to simply restate your resume in longer detail or just casually introduce yourself. This is time to be creative and let your words create a powerful message of your character. I saw someone send in a question really quickly. So it's one application for almost all colleges, but where do we submit supplemental essays for colleges that need them? So if you're in the Common App and you've kind of filled out the kind of general information about yourself, there will be a place for you to add colleges. Then when you go to your dashboard and you select one of the colleges you've added to your list, there will be a part underneath each college that says questions. And then that's kind of the page underneath that college where they will have their school-specific supplemental questions. You can kind of Google them ahead of time to see what you have to write before you start, jumping into the Common App. But that's where you will find them in the Common App. Now, if you're submitting essays through a school-specific application, of course, that's going to vary on kind of where they are placed in the application, but that's where you can find them in the Common App.
So as we get started, I just want to reiterate the reminder on the screen in front of us. So your essay is really your only chance to show your personality. And this is an opportunity to really think about whether this piece of writing portrays you in the way that you want it to. Coming up with an essay topic is definitely not easy for some students. But remember, your grades, extracurricular activities, and standardized test scores are only showing one facet of yourself. This essay is the one time for the admissions officers to get to know you, even if it's just for a short period of time. So you really have to think of how you can use those 650 words to show this complete picture of you. The essay is also not a time to be modest. And now I'm not telling you to be boastful, but you should definitely use your story to highlight your good qualities and portray yourself in a positive light. There is not a right way to do this, and you should definitely be spending your essay thinking about what you've done that is impressive. So think of maybe what your mom would say to her friends when she's bragging about you. What stories would she be telling them? And you can then rewrite those stories or anecdotes into your own words and tell one concise story of you. But before we get to the personal statement, it's really important to make sure that your Common App essay complements the rest of your application. And I'm talking about supplementals, which Michaela talked about a little bit there. So supplementals, again, are school-specific essays, and the word count and prompts range per school. Each school can range from having like 1 or 2 to several shorter supplementals. So this really varies per school. And these are also opportunities to highlight and expand on activities that you pursued and activities that may be on your resume and off your resume.
Exactly. So When we are kind of looking for brainstorming ideas for this essay, we can kind of first start by writing out a list of all the supplemental essays that you need to write for the colleges on your list. That way you can write a short outline of which things in your resume you want to cover in those supplemental essays, like okay, this essay for, Rice specifically asks for leadership. So I need to make sure that I, don't talk about leadership in these other essays so I can for sure not overlap in that essay for Rice. So we just kind of, really make a roadmap essentially to kind of knock off the things that are required for the supplemental essays so that you're kind of, what's kind of left that you're clear to talk about in your personal statement. Many of the prompts will ask you things like, how did you choose your major? And that's where you should clearly talk about your volunteering experience at a local hospital that led you toward medicine. Or they might ask you, talk about a time that you demonstrated leadership again. And that's, again, the perfect place to talk about your role on student council. So after you have a solid list of which items on your resume that you need to talk about in the supplemental essays, now you can start brainstorming ideas with the items on your resumes that are left for things you can talk about in your Common App and tie things together. And of course, every year, we have students sign up with MoonPrep in their senior year with their personal statements already done, and then they have to completely rewrite it because they used up like all the subjects that they need for those more specific supplemental essays, and they didn't realize it. So don't do that. Don't kind of get in your senior year and have to deconstruct your personal statement. Just create a roadmap in the beginning to your personal statement. And, of course, every student that we work with has a few last minute additions to their college list in the fall. But again, just getting those main supplemental essays mapped out can really help you avoid 99% of the problems in the kind of essay process. So when we go through the process, this is where we need to be kind of strategic. So we're going to take that list of supplemental essays and see what items on our resume that we have left to talk about to kind of maybe create a theme with. Then we need to make a list of the Common App essay prompts. And then in outline form, you can explain how you'd answer each one and kind of in an extended outline kind of explain how you would answer each one of the essay prompts. This exercise is honestly usually the one that really helps students choose their essays because they'll see which one is like they have the most content to write about, that's the easiest for them to kind of drum up ideas for their stories, and then that will kind of help pave the way to kind of their final essay idea. So just make sure to use the prompt, to choose the prompt that will guide you into the right kind of self-reflection and also points to your character, experiences, and accomplishments kind of all in one. So you can be really self-reflective over the things that you've accomplished. The prompt that you choose should allow you to demonstrate your unique perspective on a given topic and also allows the reader to learn about you. The trick is to find that magical thing that you want to talk about, whether it's a personal trait or an item on your resume, and then kind of find a unique way to look at it, and then you have truly a masterful essay.
Our next piece of advice would be to show, don't tell. Now, this is incredibly important because in the college essay writing world, specifics are really everything. We had a student once who wanted to convey through his essays the fact that he was resilient and adaptable. That was his goal. So we talked about how he got that way, and it turned out that he moved to a new city almost every year for his father's job. His resume showed him to be a jack of all trades and activities because he attended so many different schools. So we ended up starting his essay with, "It's amazing how small your life can look when it's packed into boxes." Notice how the student doesn't just come out and say that he's resilient. He tells his story through a unique perspective, and that is incredibly important to be able to infuse your own life experience into your essays and your writing.
Exactly. Okay, so one of the first things that I do when working with a MoonPrep student is to send them some brainstorming questions. This just kind of gets the ball rolling regarding what types of content do we kind of need to cover when it comes to getting introspective over who you are in the personal statement. So here's a few examples of them, and so these are kind of just, again, things to kind of get you thinking about what makes you different and unique. If you still have trouble after kind of taking some screenshots of this, try to make a list of 15 to 20 random details about your life, things that are interesting about you, but that also make you you. Try to think of some facts that really helps describe some small part of you that's completely unique from everyone else you know. That's truly the sweet spot. And sometimes a regular event in your life can also serve as a great essay topic. Often students really try to think hard of the monumental, like earth-shaking moments that have happened to them, and then really get stuck on like feeling like they don't have a worthwhile topic. Your essay topic does not need to be monumental. It needs to be personal. And again, I hear that from students all the time, that they went online and they read an essay about, someone escaping a war-torn country, and they're like, I've never experienced anything like that. And that's okay. Like, it just needs to be personal and show what has shaped you into the person that you are, essentially. So these questions that we've kind of showed on the screen are designed to have you start thinking about what makes you unique. You might want to think about your biggest achievements, or a time that you showed leadership, or maybe a huge challenge that you overcame that kind of shaped your view of the world.
And now we're going to get into some topics to avoid. So on this slide, we can look through some of our most popular red flags, that we like to call them, for topics that we tell our students not to go with. The first one is tragedy. So we know that like tragedy is very hard to quantify, and it often doesn't compare favorably to deeper topics, and rarely does this really tie into a future career or demonstrate leadership. Additionally, winning the big game, that's often cliched. Injury, that's another one that we tend to steer students away from. And politics and religion, this often has to be done very carefully, and you never know who's on the other side reading your application. And finally, major in college. So this shouldn't really be about the college. It should be about you, and it should tell a unique and original story about you. And especially for the college and major, there will be plenty of room to discuss that in supplementals. Overall, just never choose topics that raise a red flag about your college readiness. So obviously, if you experienced a personal tragedy or an injury, and then started like a big initiative or an organization about it, then that's a little different. But overall, it should really be about you and highlight some positive aspects of your personality or growth. So these are the topics we tend to tell students to avoid. And additionally, with every personal statements, you want to start off with a catchy hook that'll captivate the reader and make them want to read further. These are some examples of past hooks that MoonPrep students have used. The first one, "They say laughter is the best medicine," is from a pre-med student who really enjoys stand-up comedy. The second one, "You never know where a simple idea might take you," is a very simple hook, but it kind of makes you want to read further. That one describes an inspiring business and a student's own plan to open a business. The third one, beating the odds, is quite literally in my blood. It describes a student whose father overcame an autoimmune disease and worked to support the family. And finally, my hands shook as I discovered my mistake. That one was by a student who made a mistake in a lab that actually led them to discover a new antibiotic. But each of these don't really give away the story up front, but rather intrigue the reader into making them want to read a little bit more and keep pursuing what the person is writing about.
And after we've gone through the brainstorming questions, I also send my students sample essays so they can discover the type of writing style that we're trying to emulate. The personal statement is very, obviously personal and also narrative. So it's essential that students get into this mindset and truthfully reading sample essays of effective ways this has been done is the best way to kind of shift gears into this new style of writing. So seeking out a bunch of sample essays on the web really lets you get a feel for how you would like to format your personal statement, or even find an element or formula strategy that you find really effective that you want to try to recreate with your own experiences. This is a really great way to kind of kickstart that idea. Maybe you'll read an essay that will spark that big aha moment for you that connects well to one of the moments in your life that left a significant impact. I can't stress this enough. I would say about half of my students every year come to me with an idea of a personal statement and then read something in the sample essays I send them that either changes their idea completely or gives them a strategy in mind to use their idea. So truthfully, it helps, sample essays help shape probably well over half of my students' essays. So it's a very valuable tool that I recommend not skipping in the process. And yeah, absolutely. So we've got some sample essays for you that we want to kind of show you. This one specifically is called the Rice Essay. It was originally published from Johns Hopkins. Johns Hopkins publishes a list of effective essays every single year. And truthfully, I know, as you probably know, we can't necessarily give out our students, internal essays. So that's why we went to go find some that are already easily published for you on the web that you could easily run across on your own. But these are examples of very effective essays, and we want to talk about why they were effective. So this one starts off very interestingly with a hook that describes a recipe. I kind of cut down this recipe a little bit so it would fit on the page. So the original is much longer than this if you run across it on Johns Hopkins website. But then it comes down to, I bet you didn't read those numbers, and I'll let you in on a secret. I didn't either. That's because the ingredients above were copy and pasted from, a fried rice recipe on Google, but I can tell you it's wrong because the only true fried rice recipe is no recipe at all. There are no measurements or exact instructions or timer. There's only smells and feelings and memories. I learned to cook fried rice on a rickety stool covered in Blue's Clues stickers, surrounded by the scents of my, is it Nene-Na's? Nine-Na's?
Yeah, I think so.
Minnie Mouse apron, and my Yay's a cashmere sweater, and my mama's Pantene shampoo in the comfort of our cozy condo. I cannot say the sweltering, I cannot say that word. And by watching the eggs crack over delicate china bowls tossed and stirred in woks using slanted wooden spatulas. We used however much leftover rice we had, a combination of anything and everything in the fridge. So you can see how he's setting this up. I'm just saying it's a he. I don't know who wrote this, but you can see where this is kind of going, that he's setting up, he has a very interesting hook that he's talking about the recipe, and you can see that he's bringing a lot of elements about who he is as a person and his kind of childhood growing up. We're getting a sneak peek, kind of a look behind the curtain. We feel like we're being brought into his world a little bit. And that's exactly what you want to do in a hook. And it's setting up the rest of this. He says, I enjoy recipes, the process of being exact and finding details. And then other people have recipes passed down from their grandparents. I will have memories, but no way to pass on anything besides the recreation of childhood moments, because all of it was kind of done in these feelings, like he's cooking by feeling. From a young age, I found solace in the meticulous baking recipes found in Western cookbooks. And then he kind of goes into talking about, his creativity and how he likes to live in the gray area, kind of the mess. He has room for creative license and fashionably curious, his closet. And then on the flip side, I like measuring the liquid in my graduated cylinder from the exact bottom of the meniscus. If your text message has a typo in it, I feel the nagging urge to annoyingly correct you. If the origami swan I folded has an uneven tail, I will take it apart and start over. And then a little secret, like detrimental to my life, trying to make a bunch of swans. And then, but I understand the beauty of spontaneity and organic creation, tying back to that fried rice. There's something special in realizing that no two recreations of my grandpa's fried rice will ever be the same. And really, isn't that what life is? Creation without a recipe. I'm learning to love improvisation. It's not mutually exclusive with loving precision, and it's such an integral part of my culture. I'd be missing out otherwise. Coming to terms with and embracing the unknown is scary and definitely a process, but I can assure you, one day I'll master my own fried rice. So you can see, it's very clear all the great strategies that are at play throughout this entire essay. Starts with kind of like messiness and definitely kind of like free, kind of the spontaneity of cooking and describing how kind of maybe he struggled with that a little bit. And, he's finding his own way in the world with his ending there. So this is like exactly kind of a strategy that you could very easily recreate with many different things. Just if you say, I want to get across that life is messy and I'm learning to come to terms with that, you could do that with like talking about crafts or something. I used to be paranoid about coloring within the lines, and now I'm creating adult coloring books to kind of help with stress and things like that. Like you could like find a thread that you want to share and put it in the terms of something other than baking fried rice, also, obviously. And we have number 2 for you as well.
So this is our second essay we wanted to highlight. And now the topic is about quilting. This essay has a very different kind of hook than we saw in the previous one. So the author has chosen to include a lot of imagery. I'm going to read through it. So they describe the colorful red thread intricately laces together a denim square and a flag pattern remnant of a sweatshirt once owned by my brother. Slowly but surely, each square, meeting one another, transforms into a stunning patchwork quilt beneath my careful fingers. So already we know that the author has a brother and they enjoy quilting. I think they've done a really great job of starting to include some personal details into the making of this patchwork quilt. The author continues with the body and kind of explains how they got into quilting and also what some of the applications of quilting has been for them. So what began as a simple 4-H project has become a passion for quilting to teach others to honor our military veterans. Over 50 youth have attended the small workshops I host to educate others on honoring our military veterans and teaching them to sew quilts of valor, the only recognized award a civilian can bestow to a military service member or veteran. we get to the reflective part where they reflect on the activity. The effort I put into teaching reminds me that true leadership is not about promoting myself. Instead, it is using my abilities to teach others and express gratitude. This technique is really effective, where they do a little bit of expository writing and description of the activity or experience, and then reflect on what that means to them. We really better understand what quilting means to the author here. And finally, this is the way the author wraps it up. My final quilt sits folded on a chair. In the construction of this particular quilt of valor, I guided 8 youth in the construction of the folded work of art. Together, we are simply small pieces connected by a thread of community, patriotism, and gratitude, working together to leave the world a kinder place. I really like this ending because the author uses the experience of sewing to parlay that into a metaphor on values that they hold dear, so community, patriotism, and gratitude. I feel like by reading even these excerpts of this essay, I really effectively know some of the author's values and a little bit about some of the activities they've done with quilting, and learning more about like how they use quilting to a greater cause and to demonstrate leadership. So we have a ton of resources to help you with writing, not just the personal statements, but also the supplemental essays. These were just 2 examples of some of the many we have. And in the chat, we can send you links to all the resources, and we'll also send a follow-up email to everyone who registered on Eventbrite. If you didn't sign up on Eventbrite, you can still email us at michaela@moonprep.com to get access to the material. Some of the resources we'll send you include a guide to writing the most popular supplemental essays, like the Why This School essay and Why This Major. One of the hardest things for students to do in the essays is to show and don't tell. And many students spell things out in a very blunt way in their essays. So instead, really reflect on the examples we provided you and other examples of effective essays to use your story and infuse it with lots of imagery and reflection to communicate the message that you want admission staff to hear. And with some closing advice, let your story speak for itself. The reader will definitely get the message, and the goal is definitely for the reader to feel like they are in the room with you, that they saw what you saw, smelled what you smelled, and heard what you heard. Paint a vivid picture with your words. Use imagery and description to your greatest avail, and make sure to include reflection on what the experience meant to you beyond an activity or experience on your resume. To help with this, another of the resources we made helps walk you through the process of showing, not telling. It helps encourage you on what to think about as you're going through the writing process and navigating these essays.
And I wanted to leave you with a few ways to contact our company for individualized advice, and of course, offer some of those free resources while we start our Q&A. So of course, on the screen is the link to our free resources page, which has ebooks and worksheets on almost every subject you can imagine, especially brainstorming, the essay, everything you can think of. And if you're interested in meeting one of our counselors one-on-one, you can schedule a free call directly on the website to learn more. We also publish a monthly newsletter so that all of our followers can have the latest admissions news. You're welcome to stay in the loop that way, and you can sign up on our blog page on our website. But this is the perfect time. We want to jump in to answer some questions. And I see one already. If it's not a problem, can you go over exactly what a line and a sinker is? Absolutely. So while we answer this, please send in your additional questions. Anybody who's out there, come on, send your questions, or especially if you want a second opinion over what you have in mind for a personal statement, we can easily do that as well. So anything you want some quick advice over, send it over in the chat. But when we're talking about kind of a hook, line, and sinker, it's just kind of a terminology that I tend to use with my students, and a lot of us use with our students. It's just kind of an analogy. The fact that if you're going fishing, the hook will, catch a fish, and then you have to kind of like set the line, and your sinker kind of like, obviously brings the fish home. So we have to like, it's easier sometimes for students to think about this in a full circle. So you have to start somewhere, start your story somewhere, and then let the circle continue where you're explaining yourself. That would be the line, essentially. But then to be full circle, your ending kind of has to tie back into the beginning or wrap up kind of the story in a satisfying way. So it feels like the story is done and the reader is left feeling like you actually completed, you maybe set up a question in your hook, and in the ending, you're kind of answering that with what your future plans are and everything like that. So there's like the full circle analogy is a very similar analogy to like the hook, line, and sinker. It's just different ways of saying start with a great opening line, then in the middle, kind of let them into your world and let them feel like they're getting a peek into your world. Just like Nidhi was saying at the end, let them feel what you feel, hear what you hear, taste what you taste, all the things. And then your sinker or the ending just should kind of wrap up the story in a satisfying way. Those are great questions, though. Does anybody have any other questions?
Oh, I see one that just came in. This essay asks, which grade is the right time to start writing essays, junior or senior year of high school? Great question. We recommend that you start early. So you do submit your applications in your senior year, or usually around like November for early deadlines, and then just like through December and even like the beginning of January for regular deadlines. So senior year is usually when a lot of people are finishing up their essays, but we definitely recommend that you start over the summer before your senior year so that you have plenty of time to get the Common App and out of the way and your activity section and supplements planned. And of course, you have all the extra time to edit them further and like tweak topics if needed. But we recommend you start writing the summer before your senior year onto your senior fall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like the majority of my students kind of finish their personal statement before summer, before their senior year. So we're definitely talking about it in the spring of their junior year is kind of a really good time, because if you're working with like the MoonPrep counselors too, we, we kind of like our workload dies down a little bit in the spring, so we can kind of devote a lot of time to the personal statement because we know how important that is, and so that's just also a good time in general.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I have another question. When do supplemental essays come out? We should do those after our personal statement, correct? Yeah, so just as we said in kind of like earlier in the webinar, I would write out a list of all the supplemental essays you'll need to write. And that way, like, okay, I have got to write 3 supplemental essays for the colleges on my list that talk about leadership. So maybe I should not talk about leadership in my personal statement. I'll talk about something else. So kind of doing a list like that before you start your personal statement is super helpful. But yes, most people start with a personal statement, as kind of because that's a big relief once that's done. And then you also feel like you've gone over one big mountain, and the rest is all kind of downhill because the supplemental essays are usually more like 200, 300 words and not that big major essay. So most people do start with a personal statement and then go to supplemental essays. I have had a couple students, want to start with like more low ball essays and get in the habit of writing. So they'll write a couple supplemental essays first and then tackle the personal statement almost as practice. So there's kind of like two different ways you can do that. But, and when do supplemental essays come out? Usually they are kind of announced in the months kind of leading up to fall. So most of the supplemental essays are kind of released in, like May, June, July, before the application opens in August. So, but also supplemental essays rarely change year to year. I really only see like a few changes every year. So if you look at what they've asked in the past, it is a very good indication of what they will likely ask with essay prompts every year. You can kind of move forward with at least creating an outline, and then wait for the actual personal statement to be kind of announced by watching their websites, and then just double check that it's the same before actually writing it, but at least you have like a nice long outline, And there's also nothing to say that you can't just write the essay way early anyway, because even if that school does change their prompts, the chances are that you can reuse that essay that you wrote again for another school is pretty high. So I would just say, don't wait till your senior year to start with any of the essays. Try to get as much done before your senior year starts. Any additional questions? We've had such good questions so far.
Oh, I see one that just came up in the chat. It says, hi, my question is not really about personal statements, but do you have a video or ebook that kind of walks you through common applications? We do, in addition to our webinars, we have our free ebooks at this link on the screen. And you can see recordings of our past webinars online on our YouTube.
I don't think we have anything that walks people through the Common App application, though.
Oh, okay.
I don't think we have anything that specifically does that. That is something, Amelia, if you are really struggling with kind of starting that, there's nothing to say that you can't you can also, just pay for like an hour of advice with a counselor at MoonPrep and we can walk you through it too. I don't think we have a recording of it, but if you get stuck in any part, there's nothing to say that you can't, just ask for our advice and just pay for 1 hour of advice or something like that. And we can help you get unstuck. But I'm 100% sure that there's YouTube videos out there of people walking through the Common application. So maybe try there first. And if you truly get stuck, like we're here, we'll help you, obviously. Any other questions out there? We had some great questions tonight. We really appreciate you sticking with us through our technical difficulties in the beginning.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending and for bearing with us through the day.
We will probably, if there's no other questions, we'll likely end the stream now. But please, kind of keep in touch with us, especially on our website. You can look at our upcoming webinars, and we would love to have you back with less technical difficulties in the future. And we want to answer all of the questions that you have and just help you in any way that we can over these webinars. We love them. Or if you have a suggestion of a topic, please send it to us, email it to us, and we could do a webinar based on a good idea that you have. Thank you all for attending. We hope to see you in a future webinar. We'll remember all of your names and give you a shout out next time too.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone.